So coding boot camps, are they worth it in 2023? Are they even going to survive as a business model? As somebody who used to own and operate a coding boot camp, I have some things to say about this. Stay tuned, people are probably going to get upset. I'm Eric Wise from Foundry, where we teach people how to code the right way. So a few weeks ago, Kenzie Academy, one of the largest bootcamp providers in the country, backed by Southern New Hampshire University, announced that it is shutting down. It's one of several high-profile shutdowns that has happened over the past year. Now, they cite the rise of AI, which I'm going to go out on a limb and say is a bunch of crap, and increased competition as the reasons for the shutdown. Now, the competition is a problem. I've pointed out before that the majority of coding boot camps all teach the same thing. And there's some other problems too that I'm going to get into, like they don't keep their curriculum up to date because they only care about butts in seats. And this is a problem with the for-profit education space. It happened back with ITT Tech. It's going to continue happening. Education is just not a space where a large profit motive should be a thing. And I know that as a business person, people are going to get upset about me saying that, but there are certain parts of this economy where it's okay to drive a profit. But when you're charging $10,000 to $20,000 per person for a part-time, full-time, 12-week program, and you can't turn a profit, you are a piss-poor business person. I ran my program profitably at the low end of that range for many years. These larger programs, they scale too much. They add all this administrative BS that colleges and universities are famous for, and they run their costs through the roof. And then when they all teach the same things, they have to spend a lot more in advertising and marketing to attract students and get them to enroll in the programs. So most of your tuition dollar at these programs is going towards sales, marketing, and enrollment. It is not going towards curriculum and instruction and job placement. And that's why a lot of these boot camps during this tough market are closing down and absolutely failing, because it's no longer easy for them to pump out graduates that have the same cookie cutter skill sets and get them jobs at high rates. Now, Kenzie Academy, being run by a university, was reasonably well regulated. This is not the case for many others in the bootcamp space. Now let's jump over and talk about Bloomtech. You may have never heard of Bloomtech before, but you may have heard of Lambda School. They are one and the same. The Lambda School brand got so tainted that they rebranded it. And here they are, March 2023, they're getting in trouble again. They're being sued by students, and what for? Because they've engaged in illegal lending, they were an unlicensed college, and now they're being sued by former students because they were lying about their placement rates. They were saying they were advertising between 74 and 90% when the actual placement rates ranged from 27 to 50%. And because there is no regulation, because these are not schools, these are certificate programs, they don't really have value as their credentials. The value is that the tech industry in general is a meritocracy. If you can write code, it doesn't really matter where you came from. If you're good enough, you can break into the field. Having a degree is better than having no degree, but otherwise, employers generally care about what you can do, not what credentials you can have. Now, these placement rates are particularly vexing to me as somebody who used to be in the space, because there is no legal framework for what you claim a placement rate is. So a lot of these schools, they would count people as placed if they took a tech support job. Even if you were trained for a programmer, if you were put in a different role, like a testing job or tech support, they would count that. Many of them, because they wanted to save money on instruction, would hire their own students. So you would complete the bootcamp program and then immediately become an instructor or instructor aide for that bootcamp. Well, guess what? That's a job. They would count that as placement. And I don't think anybody who's attending a bootcamp and shelling out that kind of money to break into the tech field and get their first job expects to be hired as a TA and not as an actual developer. That should absolutely not count. But there is no regulation to force these schools to report that level of detail. And it's a problem. It gives the whole space a bad name. There are some legitimate schools out there, but a lot of them act like this, and it taints the whole industry. And like I said, that was very vexing to me because my program did not hire graduates. We did not hire instructors who did not have at least 5 years of professional experience. And then we were competing with people like this who were basically cheating on their placement numbers. So if I sound upset, I am upset because this is bad for consumers and it's bad for legitimate business people. And even worse is when some of these for-profit predatory industries use colleges and college brands to trick people into inferior programs. Let's jump over to Reddit, where a former employee of 2U/edX posted something really interesting in the Coding Bootcamp subreddit the other day. So here we have somebody claiming to be a former 2U/edX employee, and they're talking about how their bootcamps are an absolute joke. Now, I've worked in this space, so I know a lot about what's going on here. So I can parse this and kind of give you some flavor on it. So I recently quit after working for 2U for over 2 years as an admissions advisor. What this job entails is morally wrong, and I simply couldn't take it anymore. These bootcamps are a borderline scam, and things are sour at every level. So he goes on to talk about how it's a sales position. And the interesting thing is this paragraph right here. These bootcamps have absolutely nothing to do with the universities they are advertised for. Many of you have seen ads online for different tech bootcamps at Columbia, UC Berkeley, and plenty of other universities. The university slaps their name on the bootcamp, and it is created and taught by highly underqualified instructors hired by 2U, oftentimes recent bootcamp grads. There's that hiring your own students thing again that I was telling you about. The for-profit agreement between 2U/edX and these partner universities is extremely predatory and misleading in nature. Now let me add some color to this. 2U/edX is an OPM, and basically what that means is online program management. So when you're a college and you don't have the resources, time, or budget to create your own programs and create your own curriculum and create your own marketing and enrollment functions, firms like 2U exist so that you can outsource those functions to somebody else. And because that firm is taking the risk and building the programs before there are students, there is a revenue share agreement, and those vary in nature. It can be 50-50 to 70-30 to 30-70. It really depends on the university, the size, the brand, and their ability to negotiate. So this is absolutely a true statement. Most of these university-branded boot camps are not owned and operated by the universities. They are branding. And 2U/edX is paying the university to use their brand, and then they handle all of the enrollment, all of the curriculum, and all of the instruction, and they're also responsible for job placement. And most of these programs are not for credit. They are run through an office normally called continuing education, which is non-credit bearing, targeted at adult learners. And because these programs are not credit bearing and not subject to the same restrictions and regulations, they are able to get away with this kind of thing. And this circles back to the regulatory problem. Because they're not governed under the same rules that college courses are, they can get away with things like not publishing their placement rates and not hiring qualified instructors and charging large amounts of tuition. And this person goes on to talk about how it was a very high pressure environment with students, that they would make them feel special and do whatever they could to get them to enroll. And I really laughed when they made the comment that 2U would enroll a rock with googly eyes glued to it if it could cough up 11 to 15K or sign a horrendous loan to cover it. And that's pretty much my experience with a lot of the for-profit large players in the industry. It's all scale, 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 get the butts in seats. They don't have to publish their numbers. They're riding on a prestigious university brand, and they don't really have to care about the placement rates, because when a consumer or a student sees the brand, there's a level of trust that goes with that university brand. So they don't do the kind of research that they should, and then they end up getting pulled into these programs. And this person goes on to say that after 2 years of enrolling 10 students a month, they never had any students show up on the placement list. And this tracks with what I've heard. You can't really dig into this because they don't publish their numbers, but I have heard anywhere from 12 to 37% placement rates for these programs. But they keep running, and they keep hiding behind these university brands. It used to be called Trilogy. Then they bought edX and they rebranded. This sounds very similar, Lambda School. And these things are a problem. And the last thing I want to touch on is how a lot of these coding boot camps are not keeping up with the times. They're not diversifying their curriculum. They're not following the job market. They're not investing in their instruction and content. And I've shown stuff like this before, but there's a lot of boot camps out there, including some major brand names, that are still teaching Ruby to beginners. And let's take a look over at Indeed and see what they have to say over there. And things aren't looking too good. In an unfiltered search across the entire United States, using the keyword Ruby, we find around 2,500 total jobs. That's not entry-level jobs, that's all jobs. And then you jump over and you do the same search for C#, and there's almost 30,000 jobs. That's 10 times more total jobs than there are for Ruby. And when you do the same thing for Java, 42,000 jobs, 15 times more jobs than there are for Ruby. So why are boot camps still teaching Ruby? If these camps really cared about their students getting jobs, they would have stopped teaching Ruby about 5 years ago to beginners. And if you're a Ruby fan, I apologize. Ruby is a fine language. It doesn't have a lot of transferability, but the data says you can't go around saying that this is a great language for beginners to learn and get their first job, because there just aren't enough positions to support a lot of entry-level talent, especially multiple boot camps worth of graduating classes. And the same thing happens on the JavaScript front-end camps. JavaScript camps are the #1 most teach curriculum in the boot camp space. Why? Because JavaScript is quick and easy. It is up there in easiness to learn, which means they don't have to spend a lot on curriculum, and they don't have to have the best instructors out there because the language is easier. But what they don't tell you is that when you search for all JavaScript jobs, you get a lot of jobs, 37,000 jobs. But what I know as an industry professional is that JavaScript is most often paired with another backend language like C# or Java. So when you run the same query and you say JavaScript but not C# and not Java, that number of jobs gets cut by more than half. And I haven't even taken out the other languages that it gets paired with, like PHP and less popular things. The number of pure JavaScript positions is much lower than a beginner would think, but boot camps are not going to tell you this. So if you're a subscriber of mine, you usually don't see me get this animated and amped up over something, But between being a former bootcamp founder and operator and the state of the job market in 2023 and all of this stuff that's coming out about these predatory and regulatory problems that have been going on for years and that haven't been solved, this is the first time in my whole career that I am not able to recommend that anybody attend a coding bootcamp. Now, I do think in the long term, there is a place for accelerated training programs or bootcamps. There are a lot of people out there who already have degrees and they don't want to go back to school. They want to change careers. And there's a lot of people out there who college just isn't for them. They just don't like traditional school. They like the hands-on, fast-paced approach that bootcamps teach. But for now, one of the biggest benefits of a bootcamp, which was a fast track to getting a job, just isn't there because of the job market. So you are much better off slowing down, going for lower cost online training programs, or considering going back to school or getting that degree. That's my take for 2023. More bootcamps are going to go out of business over the next 6 to 12 months. This market is not going to recover quickly for them because the market is going to have to take the slack out of all the more experienced engineers that are out of work before the entry-level hiring starts to pick up. And the only place where entry-level hiring is going to remain somewhat normal is going to be in the college degree programs. So my advice again, either slow down, look for less expensive options, take your time, learn well, or go back to school. That's what I got for 2023. Again, sorry for getting so animated, but this topic is very upsetting to me. But I'm going to get back to work, building my curriculum, building more videos for you, including the tutorial series that I just started. Happy coding.